Robert Pattinson is one of the biggest names in Hollywood. He's appeared in countless film franchises that have garnered millions, if not billions of dollars. He's been in blockbuster after blockbuster, and his filmography is extensive. Curious to know what Robert Pattinson movies have achieved the biggest amount of money at the box office? Well then keep watching as we rank Robert Pattinson's best blockbuster movies. First, let's talk about Twilight. To some, it may be surprising to hear that Twilight not only isn't one of his biggest blockbusters, but that it's among the lowest. Twilight, which came out in 2008, was one of the movies that first put Pattinson on the map. The movies are adapted from the books of the same name and star Pattinson as Edward Cullen. Kristen Stewart stars opposite Pattinson in the film as the human girl Bella Swan. The first Twilight book to be released by Stephenie Meyer was released in 2005 and had a publishing print run of 75,000 copies. The film's adaptation 3 years later boosted its popularity, making it the #1 book in 2008 and the #2 book in 2009, being beaten by the sequel book. With its immense popularity and the fact that it managed to make $69 million on its opening weekend, it's a shock that this isn't the highest on the list. The film went on to make $200 million in the United States as well as Canada, and with the additional $200 million it made in international gross, the movie has earned $407 million. Next, let's talk about another Twilight movie, the Twilight Saga: Eclipse. Another movie that is shockingly low on the list, considering the franchise it belongs to, is Twilight Eclipse. Twilight Eclipse is the third installment in the Twilight franchise. Eclipse came 2 years after the first movie, and goes in a different direction, with Bella being the main focus of the movie. Bella must make a decision between Pattinson's Edward and Jacob, a werewolf played by Taylor Lautner. The film also sprinkles in a bit of unknown suspense as deaths are happening mysteriously throughout the town, which would become a very big danger for Bella later in the movie. Twilight Eclipse brings in David Slade as a new director, as opposed to Catherine Hardwicke, who directed the first movie. When this movie came out in 2010, people were already 2 Twilight movies in, and had had a chance to get familiar with the characters, so it's not surprising that it would make more than the movie that started the franchise off. The first movie made $408 million. Eclipse did not exactly make double that, but it came very close. Twilight Eclipse brought in $693 million, just $107 million less than double. Now, let's talk about Twilight New Moon. Yes, once again, we're discussing another movie in the Twilight franchise. Twilight New Moon came out in 2009, just 1 year after the first Twilight movie. Twilight made more than both Eclipse and its predecessor. Like the movie that would follow, New Moon put a new director in the director's chair. This time around, it was Chris Weitz. Unlike Eclipse, this film focuses on both Edward and Bella. In the movie, an incident that occurs at Cullen's house causes Edward to end his relationship with Bella. Even worse for Bella, Edward and his family pack up and get out of town. Bella obviously finds herself in a state of depression, which causes her to isolate herself from everybody around her. In true Twilight matter, Bella finds herself in great danger. This was also the first movie that shined light on Jacob and Bella together. This was surely enough to get fans out and into the theaters. The movie had a budget of $50 million and made over 10 times that budget. Twilight New Moon made $709 million, just a bit over $300 million more dollars than the first one made. Let's again talk about a Twilight movie. Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 1. If you're not a fan of Twilight, this list is not going to make you happy. The fourth book, and therefore the fourth film in the franchise, was Breaking Dawn. The difference between the movie and the book is that, while the tale of Breaking Dawn in book form took just one book to tell it, in movie form, however, it took 2 different movies. Once again, this Twilight film finds a new director, with Bill Condon taking the role. It's no surprise that this movie is among the highest blockbusters. This is the movie that focuses on Bella and Edward as a couple, and also showed fans a pregnant Bella. Despite the fact that it was a movie most fans tuned into, the first Breaking Dawn movie did not get good reviews at all, and was said by critics to be one of the lesser movies in the franchise. The bad reviews did not at all stop fans from watching the movie, and that was obvious by the incredible amount of money the movie made. The first Breaking Dawn made $712 million, which is $400 million more than the first movie, and only $4 million ahead of its predecessor. Let's now talk about our first non-Twilight movie on the list, The Batman. The character of Bruce Wayne, or as he's known on the streets of Gotham, Batman, is always a character that can garner attraction. DC is one of the biggest franchises around, and when one of their main characters is presented on screen, you can bet people will be tuning in. Batman is a character that's not shy of superstars. Actors from Adam West to Michael Keaton to Ben Affleck have taken a shot at the Caped Crusader. The most recent from this list is Robert Pattinson, who took a shot at the character actor in the 2022 Michael Reeves film, The Batman. Pattinson's portrayal of Batman was one that was adored by both fans and critics. This was rewarded by many fans with an incredible box office amount. On its opening weekend alone, The Batman brought in $134 million. Altogether, the movie would go on to gross $780 million. This amount made The Batman make its way to the 7th highest grossing DC film, just right behind Wonder Woman at $820 million. Wonder Woman, Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice, and The Batman are the only 3 of the top 7 DC grossing films to not have made $1 billion. Let's go back to the Twilight franchise to talk about Breaking Dawn Part 2. Twilight Breaking Dawn Part 2 was the 5th and final film in the Twilight saga, and it wrapped things up in the year of 2012, 4 years after the first film came out. It was the first film in the franchise to feature a director that had already worked on a Twilight movie, bringing back Bill Condon, who had directed the first Breaking Dawn. In the movie, there's a full-fledged vampire war when the most powerful coven of vampires goes after Edward and Bella's daughter, under the impression that she's an immortal child. It showed Cullen's search for others that could help them out in their battle, but it also showed Bella as she made an attempt to come to terms with her new vampire status. Putting the love child of the franchise's 2 main characters in danger, as well as showing Bella struggling with her new vampire life, was a recipe for success, and fans agreed. Breaking Dawn Part 2 brought in $71.2 million on opening day, and for a while that was pretty high on the list of first-day grosses. The movie would go on to see a gross of $829 million. Finally, let's talk about Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. The Twilight movies were not the only huge book adaptation franchises that Pattinson was a part of. He had appeared in the Harry Potter films as well, but just for one movie. That one movie being 2005's Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. Pattinson has been in many huge and successful blockbuster films, so saying that a movie is the highest grossing film is definitely worth something. That's the case with this movie. Released 3 years before he would star in the Twilight movies, and greatly attributed to his stardom, considering it's the movie that put him in front of a huge audience of people for the first time. Daniel Radcliffe's Harry Potter is elected to compete in the Triwizard competitions alongside another Hogwarts student by the name of Cedric Diggory. Diggory is Pattinson's character. Although he was only in the franchise for both one book and just one movie, he was a fan favorite character, which was widely thanks to Pattinson's portrayal of him. Sitting at $879 million, this movie is not only the highest grossing film for Pattinson, but the highest grossing movie of the year 2005 when it was officially released in theaters. There are countless amazing Pattinson films that have gone on to make over $1 million in theaters. These are only the biggest. Pattinson's a great actor who does not show signs of slowing down anytime soon. What's your favorite movie of his? Let us know in the comments below.